Happy Friday morning, all my friends from Quest. Well, here's our first teaching video as you have your leadership meeting Friday a.m. I think I'm on the agenda at 11 a.m. Friday morning, 11 a.m. I've enjoyed talking with you individually. I've enjoyed that interaction. The program has begun. We had our first face-to-face session. Now we've had our first individual meetings, and now the first teaching session. What's going to happen today is I'm going to lay out some information. We're going to be talking in a moment about maximizing the utilization of your time. Any organization that would be going through the rapid growth that you're going through, that would be going through the transformation that you're going through, especially in these changing times, each individual leader and their capacity to utilize time to its fullest is critical. And collectively, we as an organization have to be able to maximize the utilization of our time. Because frankly, there's not enough time, energy, or effort available to us to get done everything that needs to get done. You're stretched thin. All of you are stretched thin. So you've got to come up with operational efficiencies. You've got to come up with tools. And remember, we talked about it face-to-face. Ultimately, it's about great systems. Archimedes, give me a place to stand and I will move the world. So you've got to have a great system to maximize the utilization of your time. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But quick recap. 1, I asked you to listen. Over the last month, I asked you to focus on listening. In some of our one-on-one discussions, many of you said that you had. Not just listening to your client, not just listening to your peer, not just listening to your coworker or those that you supervise, but listening to your family as well. And what were we listening for? We were listening with our eyes, our ears, and our hearts to what people are really saying. During times of transformation and rapid expansion, communication is critical. Critical. And what's the critical aspect of communication? Listening like people are going to die at midnight. Then I challenged you to give me your one thing. What was the one thing that you were going to work on over this period of time? Now, you might work on more than one thing, but we were going to commit to one thing, and we were going to put it on paper, and we were going to have a plan. Many of you have already turned that in, and I thank you. The others of you that have not, now's the time. Over the next couple weeks, you need to be identifying that one thing. And if you weren't sure exactly what it was, you could also use the information from the survey that I asked you to send out. That survey, your own introspection, talking with others, talking with me, should have helped you identify the one thing that you want to work on for the near term. And then once that task is complete, and once you've enhanced that area, then we'll pick out something else. But for this thing to be effective, it has to be focused, it has to be proactive, and most importantly, it has to be intentional. Intentional. Something that we're going to work on, so pick out your one thing. Time. Why am I saying that we're going to emphasize maximizing the utilization of your time over the next 30 days? In talking with all of you in the one-on-one meetings, the one thing that I have identified very, very clearly, and I kind of knew going in, but it was confirmed, is that all of you are stretched thin. All of you are stretched thin. You're doing multiple things within your roles and responsibilities. Many of you are working billable hours, but also have managerial duties. Some of you are working billable hours, managerial duties, and you have business development. And all of us know in today's day and age, in this hectic life, that trying to be a parent, trying to be someone else's child, trying to be a friend and having time for yourself and work, how do you manage all of that? Time. That perishable commodity called time. As I said a moment ago, Archimedes shows us the way. He tells us very clearly that if we have the appropriate system, then we can maximize the utilization of any perishable commodity, like time. So now let's go into a discussion of time. There's some notes that I have sent you. Take notes on the handouts. And then for the next month, we're going to talk about maximizing utilization of that perishable commodity called time. Let's talk about time. Time. There doesn't seem to be enough of it. In today's hectic day and age, there's not enough time available for us to get done everything that we need to get done. It almost is overwhelming. We end our day, we end our week, oftentimes our month and a year, wondering not only where the time went, but how we were unable to get done everything we were responsible for. I've felt that, you've felt that, we've all felt that. It is a pandemic, if you will. Well, in my exploration of what I was going to do with that, I came across the writings and the teachings of Archimedes. And Archimedes clearly stated that give me a place to stand and I will move the world. What was he specifically talking about? He was specifically talking about his fulcrum and lever. The fulcrum and lever was a force multiplier. It was a tool that allowed him to do a lot more than he on his own was capable of doing. A system for maximizing the utilization of your time is the same. It's like a fulcrum and a lever. Or it's like Archimedes' compound pulley, allowing him to do more than he had the capacity to do on his own. Ian, why do you keep using the term maximizing the utilization of time instead of saying time management? The reason I'm saying that is that time is a perishable commodity. There's only 168 hours in a week. I have to take the 168 hours I have and I have to maximize their use by identifying those key activities that get me more than others. We'll talk about that in a moment. If I can then bring in alignment my daily activity with my near-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, if they are congruent, then I have a fighting chance to make the most of what little time I have. So let's talk about some basic principles of time. First of all, I got my handy dandy little board here. There's only 86,400 seconds in a day. That's all there is. 86,400 seconds in a day. In the analogy that I'll use in the balance of our chat and the balance of our follow-up emails and the balance of the discussion of this thing called time, the analogy that I'll use is the great banker. That the great banker gives you $86,400 every day. And with those $86,400, you have a choice of how you invest them. You can invest them in any way you see fit. But remember that the great banker is coming back. He's coming back at the end of the day, when you lay your head down on the pillow at night. And he is going to take anything you've left of the $86,000, anything you've left in that account, he's going to take away. Anything that you haven't invested in your family, anything you haven't invested in your work, anything you haven't invested appropriately, properly, and fruitfully, he's going to take away. Now you might get another $86,000 tomorrow, but you don't know that for a fact. All you know for a fact is you're getting $86,400 today. And what does that represent? The 86,400 seconds that you have in a day. A perishable commodity. Now in a week, there's 168 hours in a week. That's all there is. 168 hours in a week. Now of that 168 hours, of that 168 hours, only about 100 are usable. Only about 100 are usable. When you back out things like sleep, when you back out things like eating, when you back out things like driving, when you back out those things, there's only about 100 usable hours. Now, some of you I know, you try to use those sleep, eat, and drive hours to get things done, but sustainability is important. Could you sustain that? I don't know. So I'm saying there's about 100 usable hours. And in those 100 usable hours, what do I have to do? I have to be a dad. I have to be a husband. I have to be a worker. I have to be a boss. I have to be somebody's child. I have to be somebody's friend. I have to be at my place of faith, if I have one. I have to have time for myself. So somehow, in the 100 usable hours, I've got to allocate a perishable commodity. I've got to invest some time into each one of these categories. So, I only got 168. That's going to go away at the end of the week. Of that, 100 is usable. And of that, I've got roles that I have to play. You have roles that you have to play in your life. You have 100 usable hours. How you allocate those hours will bear fruit. They are seeds that you plant in to each one of those categories, and they will bear fruit. Now, what's even more challenging is within each one of those roles that you play in your life, each one of those roles, there's subsets, there's responsibilities. So you have roles that you play in your life, and you have responsibilities in each. So with that as a backdrop, doesn't it make sense that I better be proactive in maximizing the utilization of my time? Doesn't it make sense that I should probably have a system to ensure that those 100 usable hours get where they belong? To make sure that I fulfill the roles and responsibilities that I have in my whole life? And doesn't it make sense that we as an organization should be highly effective in these changing times at maximizing utilization of our time and bringing into congruency and alignment the 100 usable hours into each role and fulfill each responsibility? Now let's talk about how we do that.
86 full 100 seconds in a day to turn it all around or to throw it all away. Gotta tell them that we love them while we got the chance to say. Gotta live like we're dying.
Right. A system then. A system for maximizing the utilization of your time. We've given you the background, the framework. So what's the system to maximize the 100 usable hours? I'm going to give you an overview over the next couple minutes, and then we'll unpack it in the months to come. Step number 1. I identify all of the various roles that I play in my life. All of the various roles. That's step number 1. What are all the various roles? And then within that, let's say work. Then I have roles within that, right? So, dad, husband, worker, employer, whatever. I know that in each one of those I have roles as well. It's important to identify the roles I have in my life first. Then I identify the goals. The goals that I have in each one of those roles. So, roles, goals. Now, the key is, how am I going to invest my time to get from here to there? How do I invest the 100 usable hours I have in my week to effectively get from here to there? Well, we have to turn to another philosopher, another mathematician. Ian, it's always a history lesson with you. Hey, nothing new under the sun. There was a guy named Pareto. Pareto had a simple law. Pareto said that in his observation, in his study, in his research, that 80% of the results came from 20% of the activity. That 80% of the results came from 20% of the activity. He called those high leverage activities. High leverage activities. I'll call them high return on investment activities. Those are the activities that when I put an hour in, it's like getting 5. When I put 30 minutes in, it's like getting 2 hours. They provide a maximum impact. If you stop and think, in each one of the roles that you play, in each one of those roles, there are some activities that give you a greater return on time invested, and there's some activities that give you a lower return on time invested. Step number 1, what are the roles that I play? Step number 2, what are the goals that I have in each role? Step number 3, what are those activities in those roles that give me a greater return? Maybe that's sitting with your employees and spending time. Maybe that's effective planning. I know in my personal life, with my wife, it's taking her to a Broadway show. Taking my wife to a Broadway show is a high return on investment activity. It's like 7 nights, 10 nights, 20 nights on the couch of watching Netflix. So what's your high return on investment activity in each one of the roles that you play? Now there may be a number of them, but it's important that we proactively identify the high return on investment activities. Conversely, it's important that we identify the low return on investment activities. You and I both know there's some activities that when I put a half hour in, it sucks out 10 hours. So what are they? And we proactively identify them. Now to recap, by proactively identifying the roles that I play, by identifying goals that I have in each one of those roles, and then by taking some time to identify the activities that get me closer there faster, and identifying the activities that I should avoid because they take me further away, I now have a fighting chance to put together a plan to maximize my time. Let's talk about the plan. So now that we've identified a concept, a framework of 1, roles that we play in our lives, 2, the goals that we have in each one of those roles, and then the concept that Pareto taught us, that there are some activities that get us closer to those goals faster and some activities that take us further away faster. High return, low return. You've proactively identified those 4 things. What do I do with that information? Well, now I've got to bring it to the ground. I've got to take some time to organize and plan my week. Now, ideally when doing that, I've identified those goals. Now, that could be life goal. This is my life goal. Or this could be my annual goal. Or this could be my quarterly goal. Or this could be my monthly goal. Ideally, it's at least that's the goal for the year. And then here are the roles that I play. I'm going to sit down at the beginning of each week, either Sunday night or early Monday morning, and I'm going to map out my week utilizing a technique called time blocking. Time blocking. Time blocking. So in time blocking, it's pretty simple. I'm just going to block my time. I'm going to make an appointment, right? You've done that. Many of you do that. But I want to teach you some nuances to doing that, perhaps, that you haven't considered. So the first thing that we typically time block is appointments. Well, I've got an appointment, if this is my calendar, my week, I've got an appointment here, so I block that out. And I got an appointment there, and I block that out. And I got an appointment here, and I block that out, which is cool. That's great. But what it doesn't take into consideration are the activities that are most important. It does take into consideration the activities that are urgent, for sure. And some of you are urgency addicted, not only within your organization, but in life in general. Urgency addicted. We as a society are urgency addicted. So we focus on the things that are the most urgent, setting aside the things that are most important. That's why we proactively identify not the urgent activities in each one of our roles and the goals thereof, but the important activities, the activities that give us the highest return for time invested. Those should be the first thing you put on your calendar every week. So I'm going to put those, we'll use a triangle to identify those. High return on investment activity. High return on investment activity. Let's erase this. High return on investment activity. So we'll use the triangle as the high return on investment activity. I'm going to block those in first. Well, what do you mean? Well, it could be I need to make the phone calls to the 10 key clients from a business development standpoint. So I'm going to block that time in first. When I look out over my week, I'm blocking that time in first to ensure that I do them every week. Stop and think about this. If I proactively identify the roles that I play, if I proactively identify the goals that I have within those roles, and I proactively identify those activities that will get me there faster, and then I make sure they're on my calendar every week, I have a greater likelihood of succeeding. Now, it's a principle called making an appointment with yourself. Rarely would any of you blow off an appointment with another person, but you do blow off appointments with yourself all the time. They're best of intentions. You have the best of intention of doing that thing, but because you didn't physically put it on the calendar with the time and time duration denoted, it doesn't happen. Because something urgent comes up. So that the important things that have to get done for you to reach your long-term goals never actually occur week after week after week. So step number 1, I sit down on Sunday night, early Monday morning, I look out over my week. As I look out over my week, I make sure I put in those high leverage activities. The next thing that I put in are the things that I can assume. Well, that's that appointment. I can assume that I got to do that appointment. I can assume that I got to do that report. I can assume that there's that thing that has to be done next week. Some things that I can assume. Oh, I made a little tic-tac-toe. So there's some things that I can assume. Things that I know routinely happen, or appointments that I know I have, or obligations that I have. I plug those in. And then finally, I put in the things that I know are happening but aren't formal. Like for some of you that lead a large team and that need your time, Doing an appointment on Monday morning at 9 a.m. is ridiculous. Why in the world would you do an appointment on Monday morning at 9 a.m.? That's when everybody needs your time. So it's important to pull up over your week, your month, and your year, your quarter and your year, at about 500 feet and look at the natural flow of things. If every Monday morning you've set an appointment, but you have to cancel those appointments regularly because there's urgent crises, well then you can assume that there's Monday morning, you just block out time for urgent crises. And you're just available to your team. They all want to talk to you, so you're available to your team. Now what happens when there isn't an urgent crisis, or they don't need 2 hours of your time? You just picked up time in your week because all that time wasn't necessary. Here's another one, emails. Are you the kind of person that's on your BlackBerry, on your smartphone, answering emails throughout the day and then wondering where your time goes? Now I realize in much of what you do need to respond to certain emails instantly. And I'm not saying you shouldn't scan your emails. But for me, I block out time to answer email. I might have a half hour in the morning. I might have a half hour in the midday. I might have a half hour in the evening to block out time for the things I know need to be done but aren't important. Time blocking, but taking it to another level. First, blocking in the high return on investment activities. Second, blocking in the routine activities. Third, blocking in the things I assume are going to happen. And then finally, taking a 500-foot level over my week and looking at the things that are natural flow. I block in my time. Now, I said finally, but second finally, make sure you leave some white space. Make sure that my calendar is not so jam-packed full that there's no white space. Why? Because without white space, I don't take into consideration the crisis, the thing that will just come up. Now, of course, over the coming days, we will delve more into this. We'll talk in more detail. Now let's talk about the tool that you need to be able to do this. So how do we take these concepts and bring them to the ground? Well, we have to have a tool to do that. To take these concepts of the goal, the role, the high return, the time blocking, we've got to take these and bring them to the ground in usable fashion. Now, some of you use your Outlook, let's say on your laptop, to organize your schedule. Others of you use a smartphone, or some of you use a day timer. Others of you use literally use just a sheet of paper and the things I need to get done today. I understand all of that. But here's some basic principles that we've found are key to the tool. Because the tool is the landing gear, if you will, that bring all these high-level concepts to daily activity so that you can truly maximize the utilization of your time and ensure that the way you're using your time is congruent and in alignment with your long-term aspirations and goals. First, I think your tool has to be portable. It has to be something you can take with you, jotting notes or typing in ideas or whatever it might be, making adjustments to your schedule, checking your calendar accordingly. And something that can remind you of your deep and compelling why. Remind you of your goals. Remind you of where you're headed. Might be a quote, might be a picture, might be a saying, might be a little notation that you put in your day timer. But something. Because you will have to make decisions on the use of your time. Time is a perishable commodity. And you'll need some kind of litmus test that helps you prioritize your time. Well, by having that thing in that portable tool that reminds you of why you're doing what you're doing, you'll be able to make those priority decisions a lot more effectively. In addition, by having a week's view, we take into consideration all the time that we have at our disposal. So for me, I'm not trying to get things done in a certain day necessarily. I'm making a list of the things I need to get done this week. Now that doesn't mean there's not daily deadlines. Of course, in all of our businesses we have daily deadlines. There's no doubt about that. But by taking a week's view of the things I need to get done, when urgent crisis comes, I can readjust accordingly and I don't get off track. Now, whether that's for an appointment that I've made for myself of one of those high return on investment activities, because I have a week's view when something urgent comes up, I can adjust it. Or because I have a week's view, that list of things I need to get done in the week, I can move those to another time in the week. So that by the time I get to the end of my week, I've gotten the majority of my list done. Finally, it has to be a tool that we can utilize on the go and in the moment. Because I've got to be able to make decisions. That's why I think utilizing a Microsoft Outlook on a desktop or a laptop is an ineffective tool. Because it's not portable. So whether it's a day timer or a smartphone, it better have a week's view, it better have a place for notation, and it better be something that I can also utilize to remind me of why I'm doing what I'm doing, the goals that I have in my life. Do you have the appropriate tool to maximize the utilization of your time? Alright, now we've got to put all that into action. We've got the concepts, we've got the ideas, we've got a tool. Now what do? I call it planning your work and working your plan. I think the most important thing that we can do in our hectic lives today is plan. It's the most important thing. It is the ultimate high leverage activity. Because time is a perishable commodity, you would be a fool to try to use it on the fly. What? You would be a fool to try to use it on the fly. If you're not sitting down and looking out at least at your week, I can't even understand why you'd think you'd be successful. Now, I'm not being disparaging. I'm just saying common sense dictates that because I'm utilizing a perishable commodity, I better do it proactively. So when I talk about planning your work and working your plan, what I'm talking about is sitting down regularly and mapping out how I'm going to use those $86,000 a day and that 168 hours in my week. As I mentioned earlier, that could be on a Sunday night, early Monday morning. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take and reflect, how did my week before go? I'm going to look at my calendar of my week before. How did it go? And then I'm going to project what's coming up in my next week. What is it that I can anticipate? What is it that I have to set aside time for in my personal life, in my professional life, in my philanthropic life, whatever? What do I need to map out? And then take the time to ensure that that's congruent with my quarterly goal, with my annual goal, or with my life goal. For me, it's about knowing where I'm headed lifetime-wise, and then working my way backwards to what am I doing this hour. That's the simplicity of it. But the doing of it is sitting down every week, reflecting, what was my past week like, and projecting, what will my next week be like, daily. Then I take my daily activity. Once I've mapped that out, and at the beginning of every day, I'm going to review my calendar. I'm going to review, has anything changed? Do I need to make adjustments? Some of the activities that I've planned no longer as important as I thought. Do I need to adjust those because other things override? Do I need to put them somewhere else in the week? So I take that 10, 15 minutes to review my calendar. I even go to the place where I'm going to visualize what some of those meetings are going to be like. What some of those meetings are going to, the results are going to be. Who am I dealing with? What's their communication style? Some of the things that we've talked about in the past. I plan that week to ensure that it's congruent with my near-term, mid-term, and long-term goals. I plug in those high return on activity first, and then so on, as we discussed earlier. Then on a daily basis, I review that to ensure that I'm still in alignment with where I need to be. And then finally, at the end of that week, I can reflect and then project again. That planning my work and working my plan, I think, is the most important thing you can do in your week. So now I've laid down some concepts for you. Some concepts for maximizing the utilization of your time. But there's no way humanly possible that in 22 minutes or so that I could lay down for you all of the key ingredients. There's no way. And there's certainly no way you could take that information and make it a part of your 80% of your unconscious behavior, your habits. There's no way. That's why over the coming weeks, we're going to take the time to teach these things to you to make them a part of your practical toolkit. Every Monday morning, you're going to get an email. Every Monday morning you'll get an email starting this coming Monday. In that email will be a short video, very quick, and some concepts, some ideas, and some practical application to take this over the next month and instill these concepts in you and make them a practical tool for you to utilize. You're busy, extremely busy. Many of you, all of you, stretched because you're in a time of transformation, a time of rapid growth. The only way you're going to make it is that you have a sound system for maximizing the use of your time. Ian, I don't like your system. Well, that's fine. I don't care if you like my system. You better have a system. So whether you like mine or you use another, do you have a system to maximize the utilization of your time? Can you take the 168 hours you have and 100 usable hours that you have in your week, and are they in alignment with the activities that you need to reach your near-term, mid-term, and long-term goals in all the roles that you play in your life? Or are you a subject to the wind of time as it blows here and there? And are you urgency addicted, only focusing on those activities that are urgent at the moment and leaving aside the activities that are important and that will bear long-term fruit? Only you can answer these questions. We'll provide the information, we'll provide the material, we'll provide the framework, we'll provide the learning opportunity. You're going to have to take and do something with it. I wish you all the best. Send me an email as always, and we'll talk at you on Monday morning as we now take the month to unpack this thing called time and maximizing its utilization. Take care, everybody.